You are watching Darasa Online.
Hello students, welcome to Darasa Online. My name is Aaron Moituka. I'm a commerce teacher. I'm welcoming you to the second part of this topic. So far, we are in this part. So this is our second part. It's about consumer protection. If you remember, I introduced it in the previous lesson. Now in this lesson, I will just explain briefly what I introduced in the previous lesson. So I started by talking about the methods of consumer protection. I said that under these methods, there are various entities which are responsible for consumer protection. I mentioned about one of the entities is the government itself, where it employs the laws which can be applied by businessmen so as to protect the consumers. The second entity are the consumers themselves when they form what we call consumers groups, and also in that way they can protect themselves. The third entity are the business persons. The business persons, when we refer to the traders and also the manufacturers, these are the ones who can remind their members in that group that they should not exploit the consumers. So you can see these are the various entities which can protect consumers. So the second part was about methods of consumer protection conducted by those three parts. And we have seen the way the government protects consumers by using those acts. Now the second part in the discussion about consumer protection is about need for consumer protection. Need for consumer protection. In this part, we are going to see various areas where consumers need to be protected. So I'm going to mention various areas where consumers need to be protected. One is improper pricing. As we all know that businessmen or traders, they use their opportunities to exploit the consumers. Sometimes they may charge high price to the goods, but that price does not reflect the value of the goods. So in that area, the consumers need to be protected. The second part is about inferior quality of goods. Inferior quality of goods. This is another area where consumers need to be protected. We know that businessmen or traders, in most cases, they bring into the market the goods which are of low quality. And in that case, the consumers need to be protected. Another area where consumers need to be protected is improper information. Improper information, or we can say false information. In this way, there are some businessmen who might even use the trademarks of other businessmen to cheat the consumers so that they may end up buying their products. So in that way, consumers also need to be protected. Another area where consumers need to be protected is false advertisements. False advertisements. This is the other area where consumers need to be protected. In this way, there are those businessmen who may give the advertisements showing that their products are of high quality. But when one goes to the actual buying in the market, he or she may find that the products are not of the quality which was advertised before. So in that way, the consumers need to be protected. Another area is artificial shortage. Artificial shortage of goods. Artificial shortage of goods. Sometimes traders create what we call artificial shortage of goods. They hide their products purposely with the aim of raising the price of goods, because they know that when the products are scarce, that is when they are going to exploit the consumers by selling at high price and then get high profit. So in that area also, consumers need to be protected. Another area is harmful products. Harmful products. As we all know that in the market there can be products which can be harmful to the consumers. For example, there are those products which are outdated or they have gone beyond their expiry date. So in that way, consumers need to be protected. So this is another area about consumer protection, need for consumer protection. And this, we simply focus on the areas where consumers are being exploited. Another area, another part in this, let's see, is about the basic consumer rights. Basic consumer rights. The basic consumer rights. Now let us see what are the rights of consumers in the market when they are there or ready to purchase the products. They must have their rights before purchasing the products or even during purchasing the products. So I'm going to explain some of the rights. Number one, right to safety. Right to safety. In this way, consumers, it is their right to be or to stay safe or to live a safe life. So one should ensure that his life is not being destroyed by either consuming goods which are harmful. So always the consumer should remain healthy. Then another right is called right to information. Right to information. Or we can say right to be informed. The consumer has got the right to be informed, particularly about what are the products existing in the market, what are the prices of such products. So in all these areas, the consumer needs to be informed. It is the right to be informed. Another right is called right to the satisfaction of basic needs. Also, the consumer has got the right to get the basic needs. And the basic needs we all know are food, clothes, and shelter. Then another right is called right to access the variety of goods. Right to access the variety of goods. In this right, the consumer has got the right to get plenty of products in such a way that he or she may be able to exercise the choice. And the other right is called right to be heard. Right to be heard means right to be listened to. He should be able to express his interest in front of various forums. There are various forums which are established to either protect the consumers. So once the consumer is being represented, he has got the right for his interest to be considered. So these are the rights of the basic rights of consumers. And these are very important because the consumer needs to understand them before buying the products or even during the process of buying the product. Another thing we can look into this is that with regards to consumer protection, we are going to see the institutions which are established by the government by the government to protect the consumers. So institutions which are established by the government to protect consumers. One of the institutions is called Tanzania Bureau of Standards. Tanzania Bureau of Standards. In short form, we can call it TBS. So this is one of the institutions which has been established by the government to protect the consumers. Now, TBS, or Tanzania Bureau of Standards, has got some functions. Some functions. One of the functions is to ensure high quality of goods. High quality of goods. So it is the responsibility of the Tanzania Bureau of Standards to ensure that goods which are produced in the country, or even goods which are imported from outside, are of high quality. Another thing, or another function, is to maintain the quality of goods. Maintain the quality of goods. Now, maintaining the quality of goods is that once the quality has been established, it should always remain the way it is. Not that in one moment we find the quality is of high quality, or in another moment the quality is not of or not as per the standards. So in that way, the quality is not maintained. Another function is to examine the goods by taking random samples. This has always been one of the major roles of the Tanzania Bureau of Standards. After the goods have been produced, or after the goods have been imported into the country, it is the role of the Tanzania Bureau of Standards to examine the goods. So it means it conducts some tests by taking random samples. So such samples should match with the standards which are established by the Bureau. So if the standards are not matching after testing, then the goods can be rejected.
You are watching Darasa Online.
Another function of the Bureau of Standards is to take actions. To take actions against manufacturers who do not produce goods to the required according to the required standards. So taking actions. So it is the role of the Tanzania Bureau of Standards, after examining the goods and they have seen that there are some manufacturers are not producing according to the required standards, it is the role of the Bureau of Standards to take actions. It can be either to punish those manufacturers. And the last function is to protect the consumers. Protect the consumers. Now here, protecting the consumers means it is the role of the TBS that before consumers start consuming the goods, then the goods are of the required standards. By doing so, it will have to, first of all, verify that these goods are of required standards. That is when the consumers or the goods can be given to the consumers for consumption. So that is all about the Tanzania Bureau of Standards as one of the institutions which is established by the government to protect the consumers. We have other two institutions which I will just mention briefly. The other institution is called Price Control Committee, and the other one is Weights and Measures Department. So as you can see, these also are some of the institutions which are established by the government to protect the consumers. This one is responsible in terms of price. This one is responsible in terms of making sure that the instruments which are used to weigh and measure the goods are of the required standards. Then after that, we have concluded the part of consumer protection. We come to the next part, which is about merits of government involvement in trade. Number 6, merits of government involvement in trade. So let's see the merits of government involvement in trade. One of the benefits is that there is provision of essential services. Provision of essential services, as we have mentioned before, like water and electricity. And these are provided at lower rates. Another merit is that the government protects, or there is what we call protection of consumers against exploitation. Protection of consumers against exploitation. So when the government is there, it uses some various methods, as we have seen before. Such methods will help to protect consumers against exploitation from the traders. Another advantage or merit, controlling of monopolies. Controlling of monopolies. Now, when the government engages in trading activities, it means it minimizes the chances of the development of monopolies. A monopoly is a situation where there is a single seller in the market. When there is a single seller in the market, the problem is he is the controller of the market. Therefore, he may end up charging high price to the consumers. So when the government intervenes or it establishes its activities in business, then it helps to control the monopolies. Another merit of government involvement is the creation of employment opportunities. Creation of employment opportunities. Now, in this part, the issue is that the government uses some fiscal policies to bring about the economic development, particularly creation of employment. When the government reduces taxation to the producers, production activities will take place, and also in that way employment levels will increase. On the other side, government expenditures, where we said when the government spends some money in the economy through establishing of the schools, hospitals, and construction of roads, in that way some employment opportunities are created. Then another advantage is redistribution of wealth. The government, when engages in business, there is an advantage that it may go to those opportunities which have got high returns. For example, in the area of mining. This field brings about high returns to the government. Now, in doing so, after getting these high returns, the returns can be used to support other sectors. Can be used to support other sectors of the country. So this is how the government can redistribute the wealth of a nation. So these are some of the merits of government involvement in trade. Now let's go to the demerits. Demerits. Now let's see the demerits of government involvement in business. Number one, private entrepreneurs are denied the opportunity to invest. This is what we can see. When the government is there, means there is less opportunity for the private entrepreneurs to invest. Another thing loss of public enterprises is shared by the citizens. So loss, it means when the public enterprises make some losses, that burden is going to be thrown to the citizens so as to cover that loss in such a way that the citizens are the ones now who will be required to pay more tax so that the revenue collected can be used to cover up the losses made by such public enterprises. Number 3, there is limited choice. Limited choice. When the government is engaging in business activities, so it becomes the issue that there is a limited choice to the consumers because only some restricted commodities are provided into the market. So unlike when the situation whereby both the government and private institutions are allowed to compete into the market. So in this way, it will cause some cases of limited choices to the consumers. Another thing is inefficiency. The government establishes some institutions which run the business activities, or mostly we can call them the public corporations. Now, in most cases, you may find that these institutions may be inefficient. Why? Because they lack competition in the market, and in that case, they become inefficient, and as a result, they may produce the products which are not of good quality. Then the last one is that the government may impose some legislations which may impose some legislations which may discourage the private entrepreneurs, which may discourage the private entrepreneurs. So the legislations we are referring to, there can be these can be some strict laws. Now these strict laws can make the situation difficult to the private investors or entrepreneurs. Now in that way, they can be out of the business. Now, we have come to the end of this explanation of the demerits of government involvement in business. Now, this marks the end of the first part of our explanations. As I said, there are 2 things in this topic. So far, we have completed the first part. Now, let us finally move to the last part. We are going to see, so this is number 2. government control over the private sector. Government control over private sector. Now in this we are going to see some steps which are taken by the government in order to establish what we call the code of ethics in business. One of these is called consumer protection. By doing consumer protection, this is one area where the private sector can be controlled by the government, because as we have seen in consumer protection, the government establishes some laws which are in favor of the consumers. In that way, the private sector can not exploit the consumers. Another is the Bureau of Standards. As we have seen before, we have seen various functions which are performed by the Bureau of Standards. Now, through those functions, we may come to realize that the government is able to control the private sector, because we say that under the Bureau of Standards is able to ensure that the goods are of high quality, and also that quality should be maintained always. And also it examines the goods by taking random samples. So in that way, it may control the activities of the private sector. Another thing is about price control. Price control. So through price control, the government can be able also to control the private sector. Here there is a committee. This committee is established by the government to oversee the price structure. So the committee oversees the price structure in the country. Then another thing it will do is to revise the price or prices, to revise the prices in the economy. And also it will receive the applications from various business concerns regarding price changes. And as we said that it is under the Ministry of Finance, then it will forward those applications to the Ministry of Finance for reviewing the price. Another is trade license. Trade license. Through trade license, the government is able to control the private sector, because under this case, only those who deserve to take part in trading activities are the ones who can be given the license or trade license. Another thing is exchange control. Exchange control. Through this method, the government restricts the outflow of foreign currency. In this way, the particular concern is restricting outflow of foreign currency. And lastly is financial control. Financial control. Here, under this situation, this is where the government mostly controls the money supply in the economy. So by doing so, it may decide either to limit the giving of credit to commercial banks or even to businessmen. So after saying that, we have seen now that in this second part, what the government does to control the private sector is by using these various methods. So these are, we can refer to them as various steps which can be used by the government to make sure that there is a code of conduct in the side of business which is being followed. So by explaining that, we've come to the end of discussion about the role of government in trade. And to finish up, I'm going to give you a question for your revision. So let's see this question, which will come from all what we have discussed, or whatever we have discussed.
You are watching Darasa Online.
So this is the question. This is the question. Mr. Nyamwela is a consumer who buys goods from a certain retail shop. Unfortunately, he does not know how to protect himself before and when buying goods. Now the question is, as an expert, explain to him how he can protect protect himself before and when buying the goods. So this is the question. I'm reading. Mr. Nyamwela is a consumer who buys goods from a certain retail shop. Unfortunately, he does not know how to protect himself before and when buying goods. As an expert, explain to him how he can protect himself before and when buying the goods. So this is the question which one needs to take consideration. Now, how can we answer this question? The only way to answer this question, you have seen the requirement of the question. Basically, you may identify that there is the key word protect. So that is the key word which can help you to identify the requirement of a question. This person does not know as a consumer. So because we all know that this person is a consumer, the person does not know how to protect himself. So it is obviously this question is about consumer protection. Consumer protection. And what is required there under consumer protection, we've discussed some various headings, but the headings which will match to this part is all about the need for consumer protection. I said we have to, under the need of consumer protection, we have to identify various areas where consumers are being exploited. So this person needed to identify, or the requirement was to identify those areas where the consumer is being exploited and to work on those areas. For example, so how I'm going about how to answer is I identified that these are the keywords in the question. We have, the issue is he doesn't know how to protect himself as a consumer. So it's all about consumer protection. So how now he can protect himself? Number one, by gathering information. Gathering information. Gathering information. Remember, from our explanations, we said that one of the needs of the consumer to be protected is that there is false information or wrong information in the market. So if one goes to the market without having enough information, that can mislead him and he or she may end up being exploited in the market or in a place where he or she goes to buy. So this is one area where was identified. So this man was required to gather a lot of information. Another thing, to ask for various documents. This is one of the things which the the consumer can protect himself. We have various documents which are used in business transactions. So let us see what are those documents which can be asked by the consumer. Documents which can be asked by the consumer. One is receipt and invoice. So another thing is to seek for advice. This is one way, because we explained that in the market there are false advertisements. Now, before going to the market, one was supposed to look for advice for those products which were advertised. Another thing is to use consumer groups. Use consumer groups available in the market. So we said in our explanation that the consumer groups also are one of the entities which are used to protect the interests of the consumers. And also you can use government publications. Government publications. Government publications. In the market, we said there are cases of artificial shortage. Artificial shortage of goods. Situations where traders purposely create the shortage of goods in order to raise the price. Now, in this case, what one needs to know is to go by government publication. Sometimes the government may publish the information, various informations about prices of the goods. Because if there is artificial shortage, it is obvious that those traders will be selling at the price which is not normal. But if one has gone through the government publications where various prices are being published, he can be able to understand or can be able to protect himself against the situation of rise in price. So far we have come to the end of our explanation or our revision of this topic. Thank you for your cooperation.